Hello, hello. This is Kara from Cypress College Cyber Club, also known as C4. Today I'm going to be going over Cisco Networking Academy's lab on configuring Windows Firewall. So in this lab, we're mainly going to be working on the Windows 10 PC, which is PC 1. So we will get started by just logging in, assuming I typed the password correctly. So essentially what a firewall does is it will monitor web traffic and block incoming or outgoing connections or packets or whatever's being sent in order to, well, the goal is to protect your network. For some organizations, they may be using the firewall to, for example, keep workers from going on social media. But in other cases, it can just be like on your home machine to prevent potentially malicious websites from connecting to you. Or, for example, you can use a firewall to block traffic on port 80, which if you don't know what that means, port 80 is what the computer uses for HTTP protocols, which is unencrypted web traffic. And while you may be okay with the website that's using that web traffic, the problem with it being unencrypted is if you were, for example, in a coffee shop on a public network, if someone happened to be monitoring the traffic going through the coffee shop's router, then they would be able to see your unencrypted web traffic. I've been using unencrypted a lot. In case you don't know what that means, it essentially means plain text. So if someone is looking at the traffic as it goes through and your web traffic for whatever website you're on goes through, they will be able to see in plain text what you're doing, which is very bad. You don't want someone to be able to just read whatever you're doing. So for this lab, the first thing we're going to do is go to command prompt. And what we're going to start with is just pinging PC2, which has the IP address 192.168.1.8. So the IP address is essentially how the computer knows which device to send this information to. And the ping, when we ping something, it actually got its name from submarines pinging each other, trying to figure out where something is and if it's there. The important thing for this is it there? So we say ping this address, and so the computer sends out a packet of data, 32 bytes of data. And what that data says is basically, hey, is anybody there? And then if the other side is listening and chooses to respond, then the device on the other side will respond with the data and say, yep, I'm here. And so when we send out 4 packets and receive 4 packets, that means someone's on the other side, they're listening to pings, and they're responding to them. The reason why I'm being careful with that is because another thing you can do with a firewall is you can block pings. So it's not necessarily that the device is not there, it might just not be listening to them or not responding to pings. Okay, so next what we're going to do, so this was more a demonstration to show you that you can ping, that something's there and it's listening and responding. So another quick demonstration, we'll create a folder on the desktop and name it Cisco. We will right-click Cisco, go to Properties, Sharing, Advanced Sharing, and share this folder. So what we're doing is configuring this folder to be shared across the network. So other devices on the network, for example, PC2, well, once I log into PC2, other devices on the network will be able to go to Network, Let's let this load. So basically, other devices on the network will be able to see that folder because you've configured it for sharing. You might notice on the lab, it says that we should have ITE 10 and ITE 8. As you can see, we're only seeing one. So to kind of touch on this note that says, if you can't see this, ask the instructor for help. On mine, I can't see either the other computer or the share folder because I can't see the other computer. So one reason this can happen is that network discovery might be off on PC2. And basically that means that it's not looking for other devices. That doesn't mean they're not there, it's just not looking. And we know that this is the case because if we do // ITE10, which is the name of PC1 in this network, we hit enter, we're inside. We're in PC10 or PC1, and we see the Cisco folder that we just made on the desktop. So the issue for this specific VM configuration, I believe, is that network discovery is not turned on, or PC1 is not allowing itself to be discovered by network discovery, but we can still just directly go to it. So you can kind of think of this like if you're in your kitchen and the light is off, you might know that the stove is still there. You can't see it, but because you already know it's there and you know where it is in the room, you can go there and be able to access your stove. You probably shouldn't be using the stove in the dark. But point is, you can't see it, doesn't mean it's not there. And because we know where it is, we can just type in the address and go right there. So are we able to see the shared Cisco folder? Yes. It took us a minute, but we saw it. So again, this was a demonstration to show you that we can do these things. What we're going to do now is configure Windows Firewall and maybe make it so that we can't see that. So first thing we'll do is go to Control Panel, System and Security, Windows Defender Firewall, and notice that it's off. So because it's off, we want to turn it on. So we'll click Turn Windows Defender Firewall on or off. And all we're going to do is literally just click Turn on. Okay. And now we see this nice green color instead of the scary red color. Right. So it'll ask you what are the benefits of Windows Firewall. That's kind of what I was talking about at the very beginning. It can protect you from attackers and malicious things in general. The one thing about this traditional firewall is you have to have a system administrator or just a person who's configuring it, who knows what to block and what to allow. And if you know what ports bad traffic will usually come in on, then you can disallow those. But right now, in most companies, they'll be using a next generation firewall instead. And these ones have integrated intrusion prevention. So basically what that means is that they can actually block specific URLs. For example, if a URL is known to have malware or to be visited by attackers once they've gotten into a system, then you can block it. And they have application awareness. So if they see, basically next generation firewalls are smarter, they can actually look at the traffic itself instead of where the traffic is going and be able to identify malicious things before they even reach your system. And that's the important thing, because it's always, it's more difficult to clean up damage than to prevent damage. So yeah, this is the big thing, because I was talking about with a traditional firewall, you need to have someone who knows what they're doing in order for it to actually be helpful in protecting your system. So something next generation firewalls do is they'll have some sort of threat intelligence source. For example, MITRE ATT&CK is a very good one. And they can use that source to inform the blocking and allowing that they're doing. And the reason why it says source and not just threat intelligence is because it wants to have a place to go to get that information. Because if you just put data in it, then it's static, it's not changing. If you give it the ability to update, and then you connect that updating to a threat intelligence community or a company that will be updating their stuff, then your firewall receives the most up-to-date information about what is bad and what should not be allowed and what is okay and should be allowed. Which is why they mention evolving security threats, because that's what you want. Security is constantly evolving. Attackers are constantly figuring out what they can break. And so you want your protection to be evolving as well. Okay, back to the actual lab. So we're going to investigate the Firewall Allowed Programs feature. So we click Allow an app or feature through Windows Defender Firewall. And here we see a whole bunch of things. These are all of the apps and features that have some sort of configuration on the firewall. So if it has the check mark, it's allowed through the firewall. And you'll see this Allow Another App button. If for some reason you install a program and Windows Defender Firewall is not able to automatically detect and configure the settings that it needs, then you can do it manually. So one way a program can appear to not be working, it might be because the firewall is preventing it from accessing, because many firewalls will have default deny, which is a good security principle. Basically, if you don't know it's okay, don't allow it to connect. And that's a good security principle, but also if it can't figure out that it is actually a safe program, then it can stop your workflow or your gameplay flow, depending on what you're doing. So yes, Allow Another App will allow you to manually add an application. Okay, so it's maybe necessary if you have an application that requires outside communication. Yes, okay, so that's what I was talking about. Creating too many exceptions in your programs and services file can have negative consequences. So one negative consequence of too many exceptions specifically. So if you have an exception in there somewhere that you shouldn't have, it's allowing traffic through when it shouldn't. That's bad because it's a security risk, right? So the reason why it's bad specifically to have too many connections is because if one of them is bad, it's hard for you to tell which one if you just have too many. So if you are a system administrator, if you are a system administrator, then something you would need to do is be going through these and making sure you know everything in here and what is allowed and what should not be. Yes. If you're working on your own system and this is not your hobby and you don't know a whole lot about these things, generally you can go with the default. I'm afraid to give that advice because sometimes the default is very bad. But in this case, if you don't know what you're doing, you should go with the default and not disallow too many things, because if you don't allow anything to come through, then your computer won't work. So be careful about it and research something before you allow it through. But yeah, if you don't know, and you might end up confusing yourself trying to go through every single thing. So go with the default. If things start going wrong, then come here and examine examine things and research what they do. Okay, so step 5, what we're going to do is go to File and Printer Sharing. So right here, and we see it has check marks, so it's allowed private and public. And we're going to unclick that, see the checkbox go away, or the check marks go away. And now, if we go back to PC2, and we go to Network, we do / ITE10, and we see Cisco. Okay, that didn't work because I didn't click OK. We have to actually click OK for it to function properly. So now when I clicked that, it's refreshing it, and you'll see it's taking a while now because it's trying to connect. It's trying really hard to connect. And this isn't going to work because on our firewall on PC10, we just stopped file and printer sharing from being allowed through, and this is file sharing. So folder's empty now. We can't see Cisco. But if we go back to properties here, we go to sharing, it still says it's shared. So this is the power of the firewall in general, is that something can seem to be allowed, but it's being stopped on the network level or the transport level, both. So to the eyes of the folder, the Cisco folder, it is configured for sharing, but the firewall itself is stopping that from happening. So we can connect to PC1, but we can't view a Cisco shared folder. All right, maybe I need to capitalize that. Oh, no, it's because that's dash. So once I refreshed it again, it actually can't access ITE10 at all. So now it can't access the computer. So yeah, we turned off file and printer sharing, and now PC2 can't even see PC1. And this is why I was talking about the difference between having network discovery on or off. Because when it was off before, that just meant we couldn't see it, but we could still go there. Here, it's blocking the connection entirely now. Okay, so if we say cancel, because we don't need to diagnose the problem, we know the problem. We'll go back here, back to file and printer sharing, there. And enable those, hit OK, because we want it to actually apply. We'll come back here to the network. Again, say ITE10. And it's here again. We can see the folder and go inside. And that's because we just re-enabled it on PC10. Okay. So for step 6, on PC10, click Control Panel, System and Security, Windows Defender Firewall, Advanced Settings. All right. So once we're in Advanced Settings, we're going to head to Inbound Rules. So again, this is incoming network connections. You'll see all these green check marks for things that are enabled and allowed. So in the middle panel, scroll down until you find the inbound rule named Files and Printer Sharing. Okay, so there's a lot of these. So we are looking for Echo Request ICMP v4 in. Okay, there are 3 of these. Okay. Okay, so the reason why there are 3 is because one is public, one's domain, and one's private. So the actual advanced section, it gets quite specific. So I'll actually do this for all three of these. So right click, select properties, and advanced. Okay. So click customize in the interface window. The Customize Interface Types window displays the different connections configured for your computer, and we want to leave all of these. So basically, if we wanted to be more specific, we could say, okay, only do this on the local area network or remote access or wireless. So we're leaving it on all. So in Programs and Services, we're going to hit Settings on Services, and they want you to list the short name of 4 services that are available in here. So I believe that is these. Okay, hit cancel. All right, so now we are on protocols and ports. And we're going to hit customize. So this is for ICMP. So earlier I was talking about ping. Ping uses something called ICMP. So it's what it uses to actually do its job, right? So if we are blocking ICMP settings, then we'll be blocking pings, basically. And we may not be blocking outgoing pings. We might only be blocking incoming pings, which is probably what we want. But for this one, where are we? Okay, for ICMP settings, click customize. I did that. Allowing incoming echo requests is what allows network users to ping your computer to determine if the computer is present on the network. So that's what I was talking about. So right now we're on inbound rules, and you see echo request is checked. So that means they are allowed to ping us. So earlier when I was talking about sending out something that says, hey, are you there? That's the request. They're requesting you say something. And then when you say, yes, I'm here, that's the reply. Request and reply. So incoming echo requests means you're allowing people to ask you if you're here, basically, or you're listening to them asking if you're here. So 4 of the specific ICMP. So that's going to be echo request and echo reply, I believe. Okay, I was a little bit confused there for a second. So when it says list 4 of these specific ICMP types, these are the ICMP types. There are more than 4 of them. That's what confused me. So when it says list 4, it means pick 4 to talk about, basically. But that is the end of our lab. So we'll go ahead and close out everything. Delete this Cisco folder. Okay. And we will sign off here. So a reflection question: what are some possible reasons you may need to make firewall changes? So we've been talking this whole time about how firewalls are protecting you. So if you realize that traffic is being let in and it shouldn't be, then that's a reason that you would need to make a change. You would want to block that. Or if you have an application that needs to access the internet and it's not being allowed access, that is potentially a firewall issue. So you would want to go in and allow outgoing access and probably incoming access for that specific application so that it can do its job and you can get the effect you want. So that wraps up our Configure Windows Firewall Lab. I hope you learned something.